words. Remembrance. I always love to see the faces of people that wander in at 11:30 and they're like, what? I know it's a little mean, isn't it? So, but you're here. And I'm so glad you're here because together we are a spiritual community called Center for Spiritual Living Morristown. And we're here to simply be together and to remember who and what we really are and what life is really about. So I'm Frankie. I'm the spiritual director here, and no matter where you come from, where you've been, what's happened to you, what's happening to you now, there's a place here to belong, and there's a place here for you to remember the truth of your very heart. And then there's a way to learn how to live that more and more and more each day. So one of the things that we do right after celebration is we have wonderful coffee, tea, snacks, sometimes really good food, sometimes a lot, sometimes a little. But there's also an opportunity at 12 o'clock to meet in sacred space at the bottom of the stairs where there's a group of people that just talk about what came up this morning during the talk and what was triggered and what the intention is. And sometimes there's a topic. And so today that's going to be facilitated by Beth Williams. And that's at 12 o'clock. So I realized that even though this is the book of the month by Howard Thurman, The Inward Journey, that some of you bought a book that's not the right one. It's called For the Inward Journey, and it's for blue. So if you got that book, you can either keep it, or you can return it, or you can replace it. We're getting the correct one. It's coming in. Is it in yet?
Not yet.
It's coming in, and so once it's in, we'll take care of you. But they're both wonderful books. So that's the book of the month. So possible as we do a spiritual mind treatment, which is our word for affirmative prayer. So let's close our eyes. And let's take a moment. Let's return again to that place in our hearts that is the purest part of our nature. And even if we think it isn't quite so pure, then we haven't lifted the veil yet. So we have to lift the veil and look deeper and see that which is the purest part of us, which is that place where we experience our God self, our higher self, our true self, our essential nature, the ground of our being, our sweet spots, our infinite link to the divine that nothing can sever by, nothing can sever it. And so today we simply remember who and what we really are, and we know that that's an infinite idea, so there's always more to explore, to experience, to see, to know, to feel, to praise, to love. And so we open our minds to the experience at hand because we know that the soul is ever expanding. It's the ego self that wants to contract. And so we pause so we can make that choice to expand and open to divine love flowing through us. Remembering that we are each instruments of the divine, and because each of us are unique, each of us has a unique part to play in this thing called life, to bring the sacred back to life, back into the awareness of ourselves and others. So we're blessed today to really raise a few veils and remember the truth. And so for that and so much more, we are deeply grateful. And so it is.
And so it is.
So, I just want to check out to see if we are maybe in a similar mindset that I've been in lately and haven't really talked about a whole lot. But when I watch the news and look at what's happening in the world, it seems to me that the world has gone mad. Would you agree?
Yes.
It's like people are insane. We live in this crazy, insane world. I mean, sometimes I look at the news and I see how divided we are as a country, as a world, and I'm like, really? I look at some of the horrible things that I see when it comes to climate change and our planet that we are destroying. And then I hear stories of human trafficking for the purpose of enslaving people. And I'm going to be more shocking, breeding babies so they can be raped. Things like that are happening under our noses. People are being disrespected in so many forms every moment of every day somewhere on this planet. People killing each other for $1. What else comes to your mind that you say, this is just insane? The world has gone mad. Anything else that maybe I didn't mention? I pretty much covered it, right? But then,
People just don't tell the truth.
people not telling the truth. Yes, people not telling. There's so many things, right? And then I learned today that the EPA has just told us that toxic chemicals are being released in New Jersey, 6 million pounds in 2017, and the majority of that is ammonia, which affects our lungs. So these little things happen, and then the killing everyone is not just physical, it's mental, emotionally, spiritually, right? And so we look at the world and it's not a miracle that we can't hold our attention, but did you know that the human being's attention span is at an all-time low? It's 8 seconds. A goldfish is 9.
What about a man?
And so we really have to pay attention and notice and not go la 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 la, because we're all a part of it. Each of us are responsible for what's happening on this planet. And if it seems insane and it seems like a bad dream, in a way it is, because we're all being lulled to sleep. We're all being hypnotized. We're all being brainwashed. The moment that you go onto your smartphone or on the internet, your mind is being captured and you're being sucked into a vortex just so you forget who and what you really are. So today we are lifting the veils because our attention matters. And where our attention is matters. One of my teachers years ago said that the TV is just a prayer request. It's just a prayer request. It's not so we get sucked into the bad news, but we say, I've got a little work to do. Because if I'm witnessing it, then I am a part of it. And I'm partly responsible. And to not be so afraid of that, because I know how easy it can be to be triggered, to be traumatized, to be afraid of it. But yet, we who are now alive on this planet are partly responsible. And so we get to look a little bit deeper, and today I want to look deeper by lifting the veils. And so when you heard James do that song this morning, and he's going to do it again, so that you can take it deeper into your heart, because behind the veil is the truth with a capital T. Behind the veil is divine love. Behind the veil is our sacred nature. Behind the veil is grace. Behind the veil is healing wisdom. Behind the veil is that which can never be destroyed, taken away from you, harmed, abused, hurt, or lied about. And so whatever makes you most upset when you watch the news, that's where we get to infuse the sacred, where we get to lift the veil and be a participant in the healing process, instead of just keep complaining about it. Because that's another interesting thing that's happening, is that a lot of people are doing a lot of complaining about all those things. But are they actually participating in the healing of it? And maybe it will never go away. It's possible. But we can still do our part. And so what we do then is we raise the veil and we go to the root of the root of the root, where we remember the truth and we learn to live it more powerfully. So we go to that which is absolutely sacred, already within us, and we find ways to live it, to love it, to be it, to keep it alive. Because really, when we lift the veil, it's not about all the topics on the news. When we're lifting the veil, it's that we have lost a sense of the sacred, and this has been happening for over 2,500 years. So it's nothing new. And we've been called, those of us who say they are on a spiritual path, to live it in such a way that it makes a difference. And so, we have a poem that I want you to hear. And I'm going to have Sandy here read this poem called Boundaries by Lynn Ungar.
Good morning.
Good morning.
The universe does not revolve around you. The stars and the planets spinning through the ballroom of space dance with one another, quite outside of your small life. You cannot hold gravity or seasons. Even air and water inevitably evade your grasp. Why not then let go? You could move through time like a shark through water, neither restless or ceasing, absorbed in and absorbing the native element. Why pretend we can do otherwise? The world comes in and out every pore, mixes in your blood before breath releases you into the world again. Did you think the fragile boundary of your skin could build a wall? Listen, every molecule is humming its particular pitch. Of course, you are a symphony whose tune you think the planets are singing as they dance.
Wow.
Thank you so much, Sandy. So that's the call, to look inside and to remember that we're much more than skin, bones, personality, our human story, our human experience. That we are hidden inside of the boundary of our skin is hidden our sacred nature, our essential nature. So even when we tell our story of heartache and pain, of triumph and tribulation, the story is a whole lot bigger than that. And how can we identify more with the bigger story? By waking up. We can't afford to be asleep anymore. We can't pretend anymore that we are just skin and bones and our own limiting or limited life story. So we have to stop pretending. Not just stop pretending that everything's fine, but stop pretending that you are broken by fill out. Stop pretending that you are so deeply affected by your conditioning that you can't express your sacred nature. The pretending goes both ways, right? So my question to you today that you can quietly answer inside your heart, you don't have to say it out loud, is what is it that you're not facing? If you think about what's happening in the world and if it hurts your heart, or you have a major complaint about what's happening in the world, what is it that you're not facing about that? Inside yourself. Inside yourself, because it's all a reflection. Maybe in a lot smaller way, but it's still only a reflection. So what is it that you don't want to know about yourself? About what's happening in the world, what's happening to you? What is it that you don't want to see about yourself, but you're seeing it in the world, and you're pointing the finger and you're complaining about it? What is it that you don't want to hear? What do you react to when you're spoken to? What do you react to when you watch the news? What do you notice that you don't really want to hear? You shut it off. What is it that you don't want to feel? We live in a society of profound addictions. And profound depression is happening. It's because there's something we don't want to feel. And we cannot avoid it anymore. We have to face it. What is it that you don't want to praise? And if you don't want to praise all of life and yourself and your own essence, bring it up, lift it up higher so that it can be expressed, then we have some work to do, some healing work. And what is it or who is it you don't want to love? Maybe that person is yourself and you don't even know it. All those things that we cannot see, feel, heal, praise are grist for the mill as a way to make this planet a better place to live. We must return to the sacred self. People have a lot to say lately about fake news. It's been around for a whole lot longer than 2 years, people. You're even speaking it all the time. When you speak poorly about yourself or another person, you are spreading fake news. Because the truth is, everyone is God incarnate. And I'm at fault too. I'm like just, preaching to the choir, right? I'm a part of this. And so that's where our healing work comes in. To really notice how I speak of myself, how I think of myself, what I say. And if it's not the holiest of holy, then I am out of integrity. And I'm not living from that sacred self that wants to be lived more than anything. That's what the world is showing us. It wants the sacred to be seen again, lived again, felt again, experienced again. And so we get to pay attention to, are we living our true self, essential self, or are we still living our false self, which is the part of us that is, feels, experiences limitation. So how do we do that? How do we stay awake? Well, I think it's really, really, really simple. I just know there's a lot of resistance, and I'm resistant sometimes too. It's really, really simple. Is know that you are spirit. That your spirit is your real self. Your spirit is your true nature. It's love, beauty, wisdom, creativity, joy. It is abundance. It is the purest part of you. And it wants to be lived. So we have another reading, because the invitation is really always go to the root of the root of the root, which is spirit, God, the true purest self. And John is going to read something by my meditation teacher, Revel and Frankie. Oh, Mike.
The world is a part of our own self, and we are a part of its suffering wholeness.
So you need to go. Oh,
Okay.
Start again.
The world is a part of our own self, and we are a part of its suffering wholeness. Until we go to the root of our image of separateness, there can be no healing. Oneness is very simple. Everything is included and allowed to live according to its true nature. This is the secret that is being revealed, the opportunity that is being offered. How we make use of this opportunity depends upon the degree of our participation, how much we are prepared to give ourselves to the work that needs to be done, to the freedom that needs to be lived. We are called to return to the root of our being, where the sacred is born. Then, standing in both the inner and outer world, we will find ourselves to be a part of the momentous synchronicity of life giving birth to itself. Only when our feet learn once again how to walk in a sacred manner and our hearts hear the real music of creation can we bring the world back into balance.
Ah, thank you, John. So, this constant invitation is to turn to the truth. And the ego mind says, I don't know what the truth is, so I'm just going to forget about it. Not consciously, by the way. So we need to pause. And that's where your spiritual practices come in. That's why we take classes. That's why we come together, to be reminded. And that's where we set the intention to not make life more complicated. I literally just forgot that word. Remember that, Frankie? Not to make life more complicated, but to make it more simple. Not to look for problems, but to know that the solution already exists within and you're willing to listen long enough to know. Not to keep thinking that what you see and what you're experiencing in the body, or right outside the body, is the real truth. But it's the invitation to reveal the truth. It's to know when you're not really in your true self. So like my teacher said, there's a reason why we have 2 ears and 1 mouth. So in a way we become more quiet so that we can notice, so that we can observe. The other day I went to get gas. And I love to get gas. Because I love to connect with the gas station attendants. And I love to make their day. And Norman was with me, so he was driving. And the gas station attendant, his name is Rad, he came outside my window around the car to the passenger seat, and he tapped on the window and he went, he wanted to give me a hug. This is the first time in my 61 years that a gas station attendant wanted me to come out of the car so that he could give me a hug. And he says, it's so nice to see you. I didn't see you for a long time. Where have you been? Because I go to different gas stations, but always Sunoco, because I have a car there. So, or Sunoco, I still don't know how to say it. So he just wanted to give me a hug. And so those moments are moments that I use, and I ride the wave on those for a long time. Because they are the moments that feed me. And when there are moments where I want to go, oh, flip, those are magical moments too, because they allow me to get quiet, to connect, to remember the truth, and to make a different choice. So I was raised Catholic, and I loved it. Maybe because it was in Europe. Because most stories I hear from people here aren't as great. I was baptized, I was confirmed, I loved all that. I loved the smell, the sight, the sound, everything about it, until I found out I couldn't be an altar boy. And then my feelings were hurt. But I always say that you can take the Catholic girl out of the Catholic institution, but you can't take the Catholic out. So I still have a deep connection with that. And I've done so much healing around some of the issues that happened. And it's still so, because when I hear about abuse in the Catholic Church, it still breaks my heart. So there is something really special to me about Lent. How many of you know what Lent is? Yeah, what's Lent? It's the 40 days of suffering, sacrifice. And people are hung up on the word sacrifice, but what it really means is to make sacred. The root of the word sacrifice means to make sacred. So it's 40 days of consciously making this life sacred. And I asked in class the other day about Lent, and there was some grumbling. And I said, but what we do in this teaching, we take everything and we look at the metaphysical meaning. So how can we look at the metaphysical meaning of Lent? The way I look at it as a metaphysical meaning is that it's an opportunity for me to let go of something that doesn't serve me anymore and replace it by something that does or will. So I'm going to ask you to think about that, to really think about what is it that I'm ready to let go of? And how can I put my spiritual practice behind it? And what is my vision instead that I can replace it with? If you say, I have no idea, I have 2 suggestions for you. And the flyers are on the back table by the window. I share these in class as well. The first one is what the Pope had to say about an opportunity to make Lent a little different. And he says, do you want to fast this Lent and fast from hurting words and say kind words? Fast from sadness and be filled with gratitude. Fast from anger and be filled with patience. Fast from pessimism and be filled with hope. Fast from worries and have trust in God. Fast from complaints and contemplate simplicity. Fast from pressures and be prayerful. Fast from bitterness and fill your hearts with joy. Fast from selfishness and be compassionate to others. Fast from grudges and be reconciled. Fast from words and be silent so you can listen. So there's got to be at least one on here for you. And if you say, no, the Pope, I just can't do it. I'll do a whole other talk about that one. There is another one. Less plastic for Lent. Do you know that there is plastic in your body right now that your body cannot digest and it's harming your stomach? Because there are micro pieces of plastic. Because that's how far we have gone with polluting this planet. And you all have heard stories, I'll try not to be on a soapbox, but this is a great way of 30 days of using less plastic. We're doing it down in our center. I've been wanting to do it for a long time. Thanks to Lori, we're starting to replace our products of plastic and paper with real dishes. And you're all helping to clean them, so it's great. I'm so grateful for that. But at home, just be aware that there are ways that you can use less plastic and be a more conscious consumer. So both these are on the table by the foyer in case you would like to participate, which I highly invite you to do, in case you can't think of one for your own. The whole idea is that we're here in life not to think smaller. When we're in a place of pain, fear, worry, anxiety, there is smaller is happening, contraction is happening. When we experience contraction, it doesn't mean we have to go right away to expansion, like as in connect to our soul, to our heart, but to pause and to really notice how we feel, what's happening, what we need, what we're doing, what we can do, what we need to ask for, what we need to know, feel, see, hear, praise, love. And to remember that what you're doing or not has an effect on the whole. So if it's difficult for you to do your own healing work for yourself, do it for your neighbor, your children, your parents, the world. Because everybody needs us to be the space where spirit shows up. At least if we call ourselves spiritual beings. If we say that we have faith in something greater than what we can taste, touch, see, and feel. So I have one more story, because the story is really about an invitation of knowing that the world is going mad. Let's just admit it. I'm not so sure if it's going to change. But I know I can contribute my droplet of divine wisdom right at home, in all my relationships, in the world, right here, in everything I do, in everything I purchase. You know, that's the other thing I was thinking about. Consumerism is now a disease. I mean, how many of you need another pair of socks? Or underwear? Or a shirt? Or a dress? None of us. We don't need it. But we think those things that we purchase make us happier. And we forget that they add to the greed and the consumerism that is actually destructive. So this is a story about consumerism that is a holy story that allows us to remember there is a simple way of being in the world when we are awake and when we are living from the awareness that we're all connected and we're all one. So Therese is going to tell a beautiful story. There you go. Yeah, anywhere you want to be.
There was a farmer who grew excellent quality wheat, and every season he won the award for the best grown in his county. One year, a reporter from the local newspaper interviewed the farmer and learned that each spring the man shared his seed with his neighbors so that they too could plant it in their fields. How can you afford to share your best wheat seed with your neighbors when they're entering their crops in the competition with yours, the reporter asked. Why, that's very simple, the farmer explained. The wind picks up pollen from the developing wheat and carries it from field to field. If my neighbors grow inferior wheat, cross-pollination will steadily degrade the quality of all the wheat, including mine. If I am to grow good wheat, I must help my neighbors grow good wheat. The reporter realized how the farmer's explanation also applied to people's lives in the most fundamental way. Those who want to live meaningfully and well must help enrich the lives of others, for the value of a life is measured by the lives it touches. And those who choose to be happy must help others find happiness, for the welfare of each is bound up with the welfare of all.
Thank you so much.